All right, hello and welcome everyone to the Devstream 124 breakdown, and let's just get started talking about this. We have a lot to talk about today, so I just want to jump into it. But first and foremost is kind of more of a small note than anything else, and that is on the Nightwave, the Wolf of Saturn stuff. So they just kind of mentioned some small bits and pieces of information that are going to be really important as the Nightwave goes on, and that is the length of the Nightwave. It is going to be roughly 10 weeks or so, with some wiggle room there for tweaks and things to challenges and points and all kind of that stuff for leveling everyone up. So about 10 weeks of this content, and they've stated that the goal to be able to max level is about 60% completion, which seems about right. In addition to that, they've stated that as the weeks go on, it is going to be more and more common to see the fugitives in missions and also encounter the wolf himself to get his hammer drop. So those that were worried that they weren't going to get the extremely rare as it is now hammer drop, you probably won't have to worry, as he'll be a lot more common later on, and it'll be way easier for people to pick that stuff up. So that is of huge note. So don't freak out and spend like 2,000 platinum on his hammer or some insane bullshit like that. Probably a bad thing to do at this point. I'm going to be doing an entire video on the Nightwave stuff and like how it's structured and like what the actual amount of things you need to do to get all the way through the content and get all of the rewards in it are. And also just in general, as a general thing, I suppose, I really like how Nightwaves are structured as it stands now. I just think there's some minor issues with them that DE already seem to be working on addressing. So there's going to be a full video on that and just how everything in it works coming up in the next day or two. So look forward to that. Anyway, moving on from the Nightwave stuff, let's talk about the ability screen rework. This is kind of a minor thing, and I didn't really expect it to be a thing that we would get anytime soon. I figured this would be one of the final things in the new UI stuff, but it seems like we're getting it fairly soon, and it looks like this. So there are some immediate concerns that they only slightly addressed that I have with this ability screen. There's the positives, however, which we're going to go over first. So the positives to this are you hover over each ability, and you have the nice diorama in the back, and whenever you hover over each ability, which you can see hovering over on the elude ability here, that little pop out is actually a video that plays that shows you what the ability does. I think that is a really good way to introduce new players to a lot of these abilities, and it'll probably do a lot for the readability, as it were, I suppose, for people to know what the Warframes do when they first get their hands on them, as opposed to just a text description that can sometimes be really vague in terms of translating that into gameplay. The thing I don't like about this UI that they did minorly address is that the stats are not here. That list of stats is incredibly important to me specifically, and many other players, I'm sure. And I hope that we get at least that amount of information that we have on the current UI in these little pop-outs. They did say that they're still working on the amount of information displayed here, so I would assume that's what they're talking about, and we are going to still have all of that information, and it will end up being totally fine, and I'm worried about nothing. But I just wanted to point out that those stats are extremely helpful for making builds for players that are like tweaking to try and get the perfect build, and I hope that they put all the needed stuff in there, and hey, maybe even add in a few other things where applicable. So that's the new ability screen. It does look really fancy, and I think the new UI for it looks really nice. But yeah, just minor concerns there. But beyond that, we just have some pretty much all really good news stuff of things coming at a variety of times. So first and foremost, we have more operator stuff. They're going to be adding additional hairstyles on top of the new hairstyles that we already have. And these new hairstyles are going to be coming with scalp fixes, I suppose, where the hair should actually properly connect to the operator's head, so you don't look like some insane person that has like hair floating off of their scalp and shit. So hopefully that all gets worked out, so those new hairstyles are a little bit more visually appealing as opposed to a horror film. But that should be all fixed up and stuff, so hopefully that turns out well. Based on what they showed on stream, it seems like the hair fixes have gone through and been successful, so that's nice. And then we have some TennoCon 2019 stuff to talk about. First and foremost, some of the new stuff that is going to be in both the digital pack and the actual ticket for people who are going, which, by the way, I'm going, for anyone wondering. There's going to be a new armor set and an emote. So the emote is going to display the TennoCon glyph. Whenever you like do the emote, it'll like appear in game and stuff. So that's cool. It's kind of a new direction for some emotes, which they seem to be going a little bit harder on with some of the Nightwave stuff as well. But the armor set looks like this, and this is not the default colors. This is on Rebecca's Nyx, but this is just the armor set, so you guys can get a feel for what that looks like. I think it looks pretty nice. It's different than the old Tennokan armor set, but still keeps the kind of sleek design that they tend to have, or that they have had in the past, and I think it looks really nice. So there's that, and then besides that, we have some incredibly important stuff that I did not think was going to be this crazy, and that's the Planes remaster stuff. So they kind of talked about changing the planes and doing things that people have been asking about for a while, like putting ways to accept bounties without having to go back to Cetus and stuff. And the accepting bounties from like out in the planes itself and stuff, that's all coming. But there's also going to be a complete and total visual overhaul of the entirety of the planes. And it looks fantastic. It is a huge visual upgrade side by side, and it looks even better in motion. It's like super impressive that they've done this, and also it seems like way overkill for what like the necessities maybe were for PoE, but it looks absolutely incredible. Like the landscape is like completely changed. It makes me both extremely excited that it's going to be so visually impressive, and also a little bit worried that Eidolons are going to have a hard time walking around on this like very obviously more complicated terrain. Like that's like literally my only worry with it, is like, is this too nice and too detailed to fight Eidolons in? Because like there's like such a higher density of trees and just items and like just detail in general, that's kind of the only question I have for it. Either way, at the very least, it looks absolutely incredible. And I can't wait to see all of that stuff. And as I said, the bounties are going to be acceptable while out in the plains, and that is going to definitely make doing that way more convenient, especially on console where the load times are a little bit longer, and going back into Cetus and back out can be a gigantic pain in the fucking ass. So that'll be really nice to have that all sorted out. And then we have energy effects. So this is not coming soon. Just straight up, even DE did not say soon for this. But I wanted to mention it because it is a really cool fashion frame thing, and that is that energy is going to be receiving two-tone colors. So basically you're going to choose two colors for your energy color instead of just one for certain things. So here is an example on Nezha with sort of the red and the blue, giving you that like really cool fire effect. And this is going to be implemented apparently because the default elemental effects on weapons for the melee remaster stuff, which should be coming next week, is going to be a bunch of two-tone effects and stuff. So we'll get kind of a preview of where this is going, and then much later we'll be able to do it ourselves and probably do some really insane shit where we've got like neon pink and purple lightning. And that's really extremely exciting because that's like a really deep level of customization that we've seen here and there, because there are certain abilities and warframes in the game that have two-tone energy colors as their default energy color, but we've never been able to do that ourselves. So that is, for the future, quite exciting to me personally, because that's just a deeper level of fashion that I very much appreciate. Now, moving on, we have some new mods and things, and some new enemies called amalgams. So amalgam mods and amalgam enemies. So here are some of the mod examples, and basically what these are slightly less powerful versions of things like Serration. So we have like Serrated Rush, which is a bunch of damage, not quite as much damage as Serration, but it also gives you sprint speed. And then we have like obviously the multi-shot and the dodge speed being an incredibly interesting stat. And then critical damage, faster charge attacks, a bunch of stuff like that. Do I think these mods are going to be good? The answer is maybe, and it really depends on what stats get mixed. If it's only these 4 mods, I don't see these getting a ton of use, because these specific stat lines don't seem crazy useful to me, outside of maybe tactical diffusion being a thing some players would want to equip because dodge speed is such a cool stat. Outside of that, there's going to be a hard argument with whether or not you should use these, and I don't think there's going to be a huge downside to players who want to use something like Serrated Rush because they want to run faster on their Volt or whatever. But I think it'll be really interesting if we get a ton of these mods, if people will start to, because these mods are, just to be super clear, it's Serration, which is a primary mod, plus Rush, which is a Warframe mod, and this is going to go on a rifle, so that gives you sprint speed for your Warframe. It'll be interesting to see if these mods get maxed just so people can have a stat stick for their other weapons. So you have like a primary weapon that is giving you buffs for your other slots. And if that is the purpose of that, to have a weaker primary that makes everything else stronger, it's a really interesting like play space to put mods into. And over time, I think it'll be really interesting. But if it's only these 4 to start, I don't know how popular it's going to be as a thing outside of maybe exactly Volt players on their primary weapon. Anyway, though, that's enough about Amalgam mods. Let's talk about Amalgam enemies. So Amalgam enemies are going to be new Corpus faction guys, and they are half sentient, half Corpus weirdos. They're they're all extremely strange enemies that have really fucking goofy animations. And they seem really cool, and a lot of these guys are going to be coming with the Jupiter remaster, and I just want to see what they all do. Like, they're all such goofy weirdo characters, and it'll be really odd to see these on Jupiter, because Jupiter is a really early planet, so how frequent these guys are going to be around will be really interesting, because having a new player go from the first planets up to Ceres, where all the enemies are very, very simple. They're very easy to understand, very known quantities, to suddenly getting to Jupiter and maybe seeing some of these weirdo fucks. It would be very confusing, as that is before like you ever see a sentient, like that's pre-Second Dream and all that stuff. And I mean, it'll be an interesting experience to see how people will interact with such a thing happening, if that's actually how it's going to work out, and these aren't locked behind some like extra layer of Jupiter you only get to layer or later or something like that. But yeah, they're really goofy and interesting, and I like that the enemy design is way more varied than some of the stuff that we've seen in the past. So that'll probably spice up the game in some good ways. And then pretty much the only thing to note after that is that Hildren is also coming next week, along with the melee changes, or at least that is the scheduled time for that stuff to come out. Hopefully it does not get delayed once again, because I would very, very much love to test all of the new melee stuff. But yeah, looking forward to Hildren and the melee changes next week. And that's pretty much what's what. Look forward to that Nightwave video that I'm going to be doing very soon. And I will see you then. Later, everybody.